because not everybody from tech support could attend. You know, obviously they've got to man the phone. So, you know, so the recording would be very useful if we can share that with others.
Yes. Yep, I'm doing that. And I'm just getting started. The nice thing with our, with our software is that you can have multiple windows open, but you have to use them in like an incognito window. Just like anything else, you can't have multiple browsers, multiple browser tabs open on the same one, but you can have, the different windows so that you're able to do that.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so this morning, and thank you for the intro. Yeah, so this morning, we're going to discuss, our Splan solution. And this is, I'm not going to call this an introduction. I mean, it's a product overview, it's a configuration workshop. We are going technical. We won't be going into the advanced part. That's another training that we do, but this training will give you, the understanding of, how to support it, where the configurations are, everything except, more of the detailed, the label changes, some of the connectors and things like that. And you'll see the progression, of how it goes. So sorry. So what Splan is, if everyone's not familiar, is, we're our enterprise visitor management, event management system. We have multiple modules, that we can support customers. The simplest module, of course, is the visitor module, and then, which is the standard, the basic, the basis of everything. And then we have the event module, we have vendor modules, contractor, deliveries, tenants, many different options, that can be added. We do integrate, very well into, physical access control, cloud access control, and, we work with, your company as well as others, and we're happy, to have these partnerships that, help advance our product and give customers other options for visitor management. We do sell as part of our base package. You have a kiosk with the iPad with a thermal printer, and you can get full standing kiosks. And if you go to our website, splan.com, in our store, you'll see a sample of some of the kiosks. And we also do some of the larger kiosks, like the ATM style kiosks that are available in the market, that are automated in the sense of dispensing cards and coding cards, scanning driver's license, passports, etc. So we have experience in those as well. And we have some customers in Canada that have purchased 18 of them, and we have customers in the U.S. that have purchased smaller amounts, of course, for their lobbies. So it just all depends for the use cases. So what we're doing today is going through our timeline here, or excuse me, our training outline. So product overview on the left. So we're going to review, to get you familiar. So we're going to review the roles, lobby ambassador, which is basically our, your front desk, your security guard. So we call it a lobby ambassador. The employee use cases, kiosk flows, tenants, vendors, package deliveries, watch list reports, and then later on in the afternoon, in that session, we're going to be actually doing more of the hands-on of creating the locations and the branding and the employee sync, authentication, going through all the information here that allows us to configure a system. And everything is out of the box, meaning the systems you have technically you can use today. They're all default, they're all standard, so you can give that to a customer and they can be having visitors. We can connect to their ID, we can be sending emails, we can do SMS. So there's a lot of things out of the box. But if you want, that additional customization, which I think, is what sets us apart from, other companies, is that we're able to, adjust and cut. I don't want to keep saying customize, but we can create the scenarios, we can create, the overall solution that the customer needs. So, and what's nice too is typically, you can do this in phases, because as you know, buildings aren't built in, one day. So you can start out with different phases, and as time progresses, you can add different items. So for simple breaks, I mean, we'll, of course, do this by consensus, but roughly, 10-minute break after an hour. There's no lunch in this one because we're going to be, having a separate session in the afternoon, and then another break, there. Advanced training, so this is what I was speaking about. So this is another course I'll be offering. So it'll be more about installation, meaning on-prem installation. We are a cloud provider, but we also offer on-prem because customers do want to install servers and have a little bit more security. But of course, then you have to work with a firewall because being a cloud company, of course, everything is on the internet, and it's a little easier, of course, to do certain things. So being on-prem, we have to, let the customer know, well, if you want to use a feature to, maybe send a document to a customer, we're going to be using your SMTP. If they want to interact with that, we have to, be open to your firewall. So, they have to expose the URL outside. So we have to be upfront, which we are, to do that. So custom forms, basically customizing the forms, changing the labels, single sign-on with, Azure. We also, work with Okta, and we've done Google SAML. We've done all different, types. Other integrations, or data integrations for employee sync, or even, pulling certain data in that we need. Internationalization, depending on the forms, what's needed. We have an Outlook plugin, which, I can, show you. We're not going to go over the install of that, but I can, show you how that works. Sign in Easy is an app in our app store, which works in conjunction with our product. We also have a COVID module that it works with. So it allows the employee to actually, to check in, but it also allows, if you wanted a visitor to download it. So we could, touch on that a little later. And then of course, preferences. We probably have, as an access control system has hundreds of preferences, in the back end that, that can be changed, that typically we leave to support. So training objectives for today, of course, product knowledge, that you're going to have a great understanding of Splan. You're going to be able to, discuss with customers for your use cases. You're going to learn, the initial Splan configuration from, what's needed out of, the box to, any specific customizations. You're going to have enough knowledge, I think, to, demo it to a customer. And, you're going to also understand the project process, which is, more my team, of what, what our model is. And of course, any feedback, that's necessary. So even if there's, another meeting needed after that, that we want to maybe dive into that a little bit more, we can do that. But this is more, in the afternoon, the project process.
So, excuse me, Mark, so then are you just going to go over the cloud-based solution today?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was remiss in bringing the tech support and development folks up to speed on that. So just so you know, there are two offerings that we're including in our price book. So one is that basic visitor management cloud solution. And then the other one is on premises, where, they've got their dedicated server and they basically own the software. So there's two different types of the solution, but I imagine it's the same software. It's just how they, how they install it and how they use it.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just going to pause. I'm still recording. I'm just pausing the share. I just need to move a couple things around on my screen.
Okay.
And I can go into that, later this afternoon. I can show, some of the requirements. I mean, it is fairly straightforward on that. But that, for the install is usually more, on the advanced side to do that. But I think your team would probably find it, fairly, not going to say fairly simple, but, fairly easy to understand.
Okay, sounds good.
Because even and many of the items that we're doing here for the configuration has to be done, on the install. And really for the on-prem install, I think, it's probably like a 70-30. I mean, 70% are cloud, 30%, are on-prem. And sometimes, you think a customer is going to go all cloud and, they have one lobby and, they want the on-prem, solution. And we do it. And just to be, very simple, I mean, the on-prem solution is basically two servers, a database server and an application server. And the database server can exist in a cluster. The customer basically creates the database for us in SQL or MySQL, even Oracle. And then we have a package, basically, it's a our install, and the customer just restores it. We build the app server, Tomcat Java configuration, and usually within a few hours, it's up and running. Of course, There's SSL certificates. You have to do the AD, SMTP, but there is a process, but it can be done in a few hours. It's not very difficult. And of course, working to, be smaller, in time. Okay, so the overview of, what Splan is, as I discussed in the beginning, is, web-based solution to, maintain visitors, both, on-prem and in the cloud. Self-service kiosk, so that visitors can walk up to the kiosk, they can register, they can check in, they can check out, they can scan their driver's license, they can take a picture. The GUI, which you may have seen as you've logged into it, is very easy to use. Pre-registration capability for employees, that's really the biggest part of the system, is you're able to pre-register a visitor to come on site. And then that visitor gets the proper notifications to say that they have a visit, they get a QR code, but then they also, the host or the sponsor gets notified as well. And then we have multiple levels of configurable security. So, you start out with our standard roles of employee, lobby ambassador, and admin, and then from there, you can create other roles in between that, depending on what the customer's needs are. This slide you've probably seen before. This is our, if you haven't seen it, now you have. So this is part of our presentation, but this is, the whole, this is everything. So on the left side is, how we, register a visitor. So we have the web portal, which you have SSO, AD, that where we pull in, the information of the users. We have Outlook calendar plugin, Sign in Easy app. We have a lobby ambassador. So that is, security guard, front desk, that can also handle walk-ins, but can also register. And then we also have vendor contractor coordinator portal. So let's say if a location has, multiple vendors coming, you can actually have the vendor, through a vendor coordinator, manage their own vendors, make their own visitation. So it takes some of the load off facilities or others. Or if there's large amount of contractors that are in, we have some temp badge modules that we use that we can enable and disable, badges, based upon the visit criteria, things like that. We also have, what's neat is notification. So if your visit, is at till 5 p.m. and you haven't left, we can, send a notification to say, it's, 5:15, you haven't checked out, or, of course, the notification can go to another group that could, contact the host and, find the person. So there's many different types of configurations we can do. But as you see here in the middle, the lobby ambassador, is kind of the middle of everything here.
I have a question for you, Mark.
Yes. Go ahead.
Are we supposed to be seeing our screens change as you do things? Because we're not.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can.
No, you got to be on the Zoom call, Bruce. The Splan screen is your own demo. Nothing's changing there.
Okay.
All right. So everyone sees this multicolored screen with lots of icons, right?
Yes.
Yes.
On the Zoom meeting screen. Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The Zoom
Right.
meeting was the original email that we got from
Right.
from them.
Is it okay if I can continue and?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So on this screen over here, so in the middle is, the lobby ambassador that, handles all the, the interaction. We do have some locations where the lobbies are unmanned, so that there's nobody in there and the kiosk can, handle that, because some of the locations, may need an escort, or some of the locations, may dispense, an access control card. In other locations, it may be a check-in and you wait till, somebody, a escort or host comes and gets you. But with our system, we do work on, QR codes. We can do barcodes, but QR codes, of course, are the current solution. We can scan driver's license, business cards, facial rec, NDAs, basically the non-disclosure. So we don't look at NDAs that, it's a legal document. We can use NDAs to say, that maybe you want to share something with the customer while they're signing in, some information, and you want them to, to acknowledge it. It may not be a full, legal form. We've also done some COVID screening through NDA in the sense of you have to attest, meaning you can't do a checkbox like yes, no, but you can say, I don't have any of these symptoms, I haven't been in contact with anybody, and by signing this, I affirm, and, we've done that, and, many different, whether it be schools, universities, businesses, each legal department, of course, and HR has their own plan, but, they've done that there as well. The visitor risk assessment, which is part of our watch list, social distancing, which is limiting the number of people into a lobby, limiting the number of check-ins or pre-registrations, and that's part of the COVID package. We do have a watch list VIP list, and the watch list is basically, your do not entry list that we can import from, a flat file. We can also create a process that, updates that on a regular basis. And basically, if someone tries to register somebody, and we'll show that later, they'll get a flag, or that person will not be able to, have a visitor record, created. We do have a good, robust temp badge module. And then for notifications, of course, from, phone, SMS, email. Email is, the main one that's included. SMS is a package that has to be added for that. And it is, international, SMS. So if there's customers that have global locations, we do that. We also have the multi-tenant, multi-language, multi-member. So we have different modules. So if a property owner, has multiple buildings and they want their tenants to have visitor management, it's handled at the property owner level. But then as you see in your logons, you have tenant logons. So basically the tenants are getting a slice of the system. They don't get to see any of the tenants, but they're able to schedule visitors that check in at the front desk with the lobby ambassador. And then if there's access control, that can be tied in, or if there's elevator guided access through access control, that can be, tied in as well. So many different things. Event management, and employee testing, basically the event management module allows customers who have that to, create an event. It could be an event for a day, it could be a monthly event, and it basically allows you to check them in, check them out. You can set notifications, you can send separate emails. So it's separate from, the visitor management system, but it's typically tied to one of the lobbies in the system. We do have, Wi-Fi integration with a few different vendors. So basically, as someone checks in, we can give them, a temp password, and of course enable that and disable that, once they leave. Access control, as you know, package delivery. We're not a mailroom software, but for, packages, this I know most FedEx, UPS, DHL, Amazon, they're not going to go to a kiosk, and wait and put in all this information. But basically, this is for the employees to say, I'm sending a package out, or it's for if, the front desk gets certain packages, you can take a picture, you can also, send this and the host gets notified. So it's not necessarily high volume package delivery, but it's more for, internal, and if you want tracking and be able to take pictures, things like that. And then we, of course, have, workflow approvals. So if someone creates a visitor registration, it may not be allowed to be active until you have that approval. So you do have that. Emergency notification, visitor broadcast. We do have a mustering type functionality in here where if you click the emergency broadcast button, basically what it does is it sends an alert to a predefined email with all the people who are checked in to the location. And visitor broadcast message, just like what that is for the people who are checked in, you can select them and send them a specific message. Maybe they left their lights on, maybe they're late, in checking out. So there's different things that you can do there. And then of course, a full report and dashboard. The next thing we're going to be doing is going into a demo with Lillian, but is there any questions before we do that?
Nope, I guess not.
Okay, so Lillian, we'll go ahead and go to the demo, and then what we're going to do after the demo is we're going to go into and review some of the key, areas that Lillian, has gone through, and then from there, that'll, help us solidify, the details. We'll get into the kiosk and some of the other areas, and you'll be well-rounded by lunchtime.
Great, thanks, Mark.
Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
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 Sounds good. I'll go ahead and start with the tabletop kiosk, and I'll be going over the self-service operations that we support, such as new registration, pre-registration, checkout, and so forth. After that, I'll go over our touchless mobile option and then our web portal. And with that, I'll go ahead and start with the new registration here. I'll go ahead and click on new register or new visitor. And from there, we can prompt the visitors with various methods, such as manual scanning a business card or ID scanner. And if the customers opt for the tabletop kiosk, it comes with the card holder reader in the back that the visitors can drop in their business card or driver's license into for scanning. And I'll choose the business card option. And I'll go ahead and click on tap to scan. And from there, whatever information that's on the business card will be extracted and put into the fields in the new visitor registration form. And the form itself is configurable too. So if the customers want to add any additional fields, remove any, make more mandatory or less mandatory, that's up to them. And here we've also configured the COVID-19 assessment questionnaires. And with this, we can also configure the flows so that if the visitors answer any of these questions as yes, we can redirect them to the security team for further vetting process, or we can flag them as a virus-good visitor. Here we've also added the temperature-related fields like the temperature reading and elevated temperature. And with these, if you're using the infrared cameras to take the temperature of the visitors, you have the option to record it as a part of the visitor's profile too. Alternatively, if you just want to record if they have the elevated temperature, you can do that too. Okay. And I'll go ahead and say I'm here to meet Danny Roberts. I'll go ahead and select on his name. I'll go ahead and click next to be prompted to capture a photo. And then from there, I'll be prompted to sign this document or NDA here too. Now go ahead and sign. Click on next to complete the check-in, and from there, the host will be notified via text message, email, or phone call. And with that, the visitor's badge can be printed out. And the layout that you see here is configurable too. We have a few other templates that you can choose from, or if you want to configure it entirely on your own, you can do that too. And here we can also provision the QR code or barcode onto Vanderbilt, so that way the visitors can scan on turnstiles and elevators as well. I'll go ahead and say that I'm done here, and I'll be going over the pre-registration next. I'll go ahead and pull that QR code from my mobile phone. Click on pre-register, scan QR code, hold the code up to the camera on the kiosk, and from there, whatever information Abigail, the host, has filled out for Anna prior to Anna coming on site will be filled out for her already in the pre-registered visitors form. From there, the remaining process of the check-in is the same as the new visitor registration, and the visitors can easily check themselves out right on the kiosk. With that, we support the company logo branding, and if you want to add any additional images or videos to the background, you can do that. And here, if the visitors want to do any of the self-service operations in another language of their choice, they can easily switch to them, and then this is what Spanish will look like, for example. Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing on the kiosk and go over to the touchless mobile option. But are there any questions on the kiosk so far?
I'm good.
Go ahead and stop sharing here. 1 second. So next, I'll be going over the mobile touchless option for the walk-in registration for the visitors. And let me go ahead and pull up the camera on my phone. Okay. So here I have the normal camera app pointed to the QR code on the kiosk. And I'm getting this notification to go to the Splan link on Safari here. I'll go ahead and tap on that notification. With that, I'll be redirected to this page, and that way I can do all the self-service operations that you saw on the kiosk right from my mobile phone. With that, I'll be going over the other touchless option we have where the visitors can answer the COVID questions before coming on site. And let me go ahead and pull up the email here. So as a part of the pre-registration process, all the visitors will receive an email. And as a part of the email, you'll have the option to send the questionnaires too. You can force the visitors to answer them before coming on site, and if they answer any questions as yes, the visit request can be redirected to the security team for further vetting process. And from there, once the visitors are on site, they can use their mobile phone for the touchless check-in at the kiosk, and they can use their browser on the phone or use our Visitor Sign-In Easy app, which is available in both iOS and Android. The instructions to download the app or how to use the browser can be part of the pre-registration email as well. Oops, sorry. Is it frozen for you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a nice feature.
Can you pull that up again? Sorry. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. So the visitors can use a browser on their phone or use our Visitor Sign-In Easy app, which is available in both iOS and Android. And from there, the instructions to download the app or how to use the browser can be part of the pre-registration email as well. Now go ahead and click on the online check-in here. And then I'll be prompted to enter in a code. And then from there, I'll be able to see all the information on the pre-registered visitors form here. And again, whatever information Abigail has filled out for Anna prior to Anna coming on site will be filled out for her already on this form. And then this is where, as a visitor, I'll have to answer all the COVID assessment questionnaires. And since these are already marked as no, I'll go ahead and click on check-in. And then I'll receive a confirmation page next. And then from there, as you can see, all the operations are performed on the mobile phone and without touching the kiosk. And the checkout operation will be similar too. And then with that, the touchless option can also be extended to the contractors, vendors, and employees as well. And we call that the employee questionnaire. And let me go ahead and go to the employee email.
And this is part, I'm sorry, and for what Lillian's showing is part of, the employee module as well as the COVID module. But with COVID, you do get the employee module, which allows you to, have this higher level of interaction.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, Lillian, your screen stopped.
Sorry, I updated it recently. Software. Okay. Are you able to see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So here for the employee questionnaire, with this we'd be sending it out, and if the employees answer any of the questions as yes, the employees will be marked as virus or watch list, kind of similar to the visitor scenarios. And on top of it, the employees badges can be deactivated too if you choose this option. Now go ahead and click on this online check-in as well. Sorry. I'll be prompted to enter in a code. And here for the employee questionnaire, every day we can enforce the employees to fill this up, and only upon finishing it, they'll be allowed inside. The employees can fill this out on the web portal or their mobile phone or on the kiosk. And then the admin has a complete view of who filled the questionnaire and with the responses to.
Yeah, Lillian, the screen is blank. Do you see it on your side? But it's not showing.
Oh, it's blank for me too.
Okay.
I can stop sharing and be sure.
Yeah, sometimes the mobile app, where, you know, the screen sharing program that pushes that.
Yeah. So here's the employee questionnaire. Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing on my mobile phone, and then I'll go ahead and show the pre-registration email and our web portal. Sorry about that. So here's the pre-registration email, and this is the QR code that we used earlier to scan on the kiosk. This template is configurable too, so if you want to add any additional information or remove any, you can. Here, Anna was invited by Abigail to this location, date, and time. We've also added a link for the visitors to complete the COVID-19 assessment questionnaire, review and sign any NDAs, as well as completing any training videos. And then here's the online check-in link, parking details, maps and directions, and so forth. So here I'm accessing the web portal, and I'm just using the web browser to access this. And I'll be logging in as Annie Perkins, the lobby ambassador or receptionist or security guard. And when I log in, I'll be able to see all the locations or lobbies that I'm in charge of, such as San Francisco, Seattle, Fremont, and so forth here. And then whatever happens on the kiosk is reflected on the dashboard. Here's a record for the check-in that we did earlier. And the dashboard itself is actionable too. So if you want to check in or check out your visitors from here, you can easily do so. If I want to check in if I want to check in any unpre-registered or any walk-in visitors, I can add them in as a new visitor here, and then fill out the new visitor registration information. And again, this form is configurable too. If I have any groups of visitors or multiple visitors that I want to upload in one go, I can use the upload visitors feature here too. And then going back to the dashboard, we also have the watch list and VIP capabilities, and you'll be able to see the watch list tag here, for example. And with the watch list visitor, if you want to see additional information about them, you can click on the information icon, and a window will come up like so. Here with this, you can also add additional information such as instructions as to how I should proceed if I were to see this visitor come on site. We also have the emergency alert and visitor broadcast message feature. Heaven forbid the customers are ever in the situation that they need to use this. But they can click on the emergency alert button here, and the system will send or trigger notification to the security team with an email and a CSV file of all the checked-in visitors. Along with that, they can use the visitor broadcast message feature to broadcast mustering instructions to the visitors. And then we also have the temporary badge and deliveries module. Again, feel free to stop me anytime if there's any questions. Here with the temporary badge module, this is a nice way to keep track of all the temporary badges that have been provisioned with the complete access as the original ones. And you can configure the length of stay or the duration of the badges. And with that, we can also make it so that the temporary one is the only one that's active, while the original one is deactivated until the temporary one is returned. And let's say the employee forgets their badge, they can come up to me, and upon verification that they do work for the company, I can issue the badge here. Here we'll also have the temporary badge module, and with this is a nice way to keep track of all the temporary badges that have been provisioned with a complete access as the original one, this is the delivery package module to keep track of all the packages coming on site. And from there, let's say FedEx, Amazon, USPS comes to drop off a package. I can enter in the recipient's information and provide any additional comments or pickup instructions. And from there, the recipient will receive that notification. We can also configure a thank you notification once the package has been picked up, or a signature for confirmation.
And one other thing to add for this is we've also made some modifications for one customer who basically wanted this for employees who are receiving deliveries. So for example, they don't allow any unsolicited, deliveries, meaning even if your special family member bought you flowers for an anniversary, that has to be pre-approved, meaning the employee would have to go in and put the visit information, meaning through the package, so that the security guard knows that that's coming. So even if you ordered food from a restaurant, you have to put that information in. If not, the food goes away. So it's kind of, they did it the reverse way. So if you think of it, it's possible, usually. No, Lillian, continue, please.
And then from there, as a lobby ambassador, I can also toggle through the dates. So if I want to see any of the previous days and who came on site, or see any of the future days, I can do that. And from there, if I want to change the dashboard to another language of my choice, I can easily switch to them as well. And we support right to left languages such as Arabic and Hebrew. And this is what Hebrew will look like, for example. With that, I'll go ahead and open this window here where I'm logged in as the admin. And I am pointing it to the Chicago location where the Vanderbilt integration is done. And here, the LA can either scan the badge number or enter in the badge information, for example, in the Splan system, and it will provision the badge number onto Vanderbilt as well. And with this, if there's any turnstiles or which are equipped to read the QR code or barcode, the visitors can use the same paper badge to open the turnstiles. And here I have the record for Bob Jones. He's already checked in. And let me go ahead and pull up the remote desktop where I have the Vanderbilt SMS opened as well. And you'll be able to see Bob Jones' record here. Okay. With that, I would like to pass this back to Mark.
Thanks, Lillian. Any questions on the demo? I mean, we're going to be going through many of these screens, and as I mentioned, before, is whether it's cloud or on-prem, we still have to have, the understanding, in the entire process of what needs to be configured, what are the requirements for the customer, and the install, of course, is definitely a smaller, part of this, and also our, implementation team through professional services is also available, to support as well, especially, in the first few, installs. But for either implementation, we have to have, the same basis, to go through there. Okay, so we're going to go into a little bit more detail on some of the configurations of the roles. No hands-on stuff yet. That'll come a little bit later. We have to go through, the basis to understand, what the setup of the system is, and also, what, types of requirements there are. So Roles is basically what you see here. So this is under the setup icon, as you saw, with Lillian, on the dashboard. There's different screens and, how things are shown. So if, I'm just going to bounce back and forth just a little. So as you see here under setup, so I'm under location 1, all your settings are under global. So, and global is, so if you had 20 lobbies, 30 lobbies, 5 lobbies, the majority of changes you're going to make are going to be here under setup. If you have, let's say under location 1, they want something different. Maybe they want a different form, or maybe they want a different, logo or something, slightly different. Or if there's something even such as a notification preference, we can go into here and you'll see what's going to happen, because you see here under global, we have the connectors, we have locations, we have, VIP. But when I go here to local, some of it's going to stay, some of it's going to go away. We can control this as well. So under preferences, you can actually go in, with, our systems, but, we'll be putting together a little bit more of a cheat sheet, because there's many things under the cover here. But this is basically what can be customized for a local location. You can have a different employee sync at a different lobby. You can have different images, that go on the kiosk. You can have a different NDA, different roles and permissions. So, but typically you work in global because you want everything, to be the same. But we do have that ability to customize. So if we look at roles over here in the middle, roles works with user roles and permissions. So you first have to have the roles before you can assign them here. And of course, you have to have the employees in the system. But we're going to cover, the roles. And let me just get back to the presentation for 1 second. So under roles, you can assign the default roles, and then of course you can adjust privileges for other roles. And then new roles can be created to be between, the roles, that if you did not want someone to have delete, or purge. And then also in here, you'll see there's tenant roles. So basically in here, you'll assign the initial tenant roles, but also within the tenant, the actual tenant who's using their slice of the system can have their own, their own roles as well. For default roles, you're only going to have, one default typically, which is, employee and tenant employee. So that means anybody that gets added to the system by default will be an employee. And let me go into that for a moment. So what we did here is we made the admin, a super admin, which all we did here was basically just change the label. And, for the most part, the admin has, everything in here. Somebody such as a lobby ambassador is not going to have all the settings here. As I scroll down, they're not going to have delete or purge. They're not going to have any setup requirements in here. So, this is all dynamic, can be changed. And what's really nice is you can just create new, create your own role, and don't click default because you don't want to make that, default. And then you can assign that after. So once you've created your role, and cancel brings you back, you can go into user roles and permission. And as you see here, and you can sort as well, you can see who's tenant admin, super admin, and of course, if there's more entries, you can do it here. But basically, you're just going to create new. You're going to click on, the username. Very, very easy here. And then you can just assign, the role. And then global, they have everything. Or if you want to be specific, you can just say, well, they only get location 1, or they only get, location 2. So it's very easy to assign the roles. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is the lobby ambassador. I know Lillian did a great job on this. So this is kind of, the full screen if somebody were to have all the different, modules. And the neat thing too is, you can have a temp badge module on every lobby. You can have a temp badge module on one lobby. Same thing for deliveries. It is not a requirement that it's one-to-one. So someone can say, listen, I just want deliveries at headquarters. I don't want delivery at another location. So these modules are typically added, at a per lobby, basis. We don't have a restriction on the number of users, the number of people logged in. The license, does not restrict on that. Our main licensing is based upon the lobbies, how many lobbies that are, that are out there. So of course the lobby ambassador, and this is another thing to take in. We have 3 different interfaces here. If you want to look at, we have the web interface, which is, what you're logged into and you've seen us, demo. You have the lobby ambassador, so you have admin, you have lobby ambassador, and then you have, the kiosk. So what interactions, and of course even mobile. So the interactions of what somebody sees, that meaning when somebody's checking in on a kiosk, they don't know what badge number they're getting, so that field is not seen. But when the lobby ambassador is doing the final, check-in, if they're checking ID, they see the badge number, they can enter in. When an employee creates a visit record, they don't know the badge number, so so we don't show certain screens, to certain roles because the information, is not there, or if it is there, the field is not mandatory, and part of, the training and understanding is that somebody will, get that once, once that's there. So the employee field here, the employee screen here is, much smaller. It's kind of like a mini, mini dashboard. You're not going to have the calendar. You could have that as an option, across the top here to see the calendar bar. But typically, you're just looking at, today's visits. The other neat thing here is under the action button, which we'll show a little bit more. You can actually, schedule somebody, you can cancel. You also have the ability to import. So, part of, the users of, well, when you go to a new visitor, on the new visitor form, you'll see up here, you can upload visitors. So we have full upload, which is a much more comprehensive spreadsheet, which basically you can have as just what you see here. Group of visitors meeting with different employees, different dates, or the basic upload is, if you're only meeting with that one employee, you can upload a spreadsheet that has the information, that's required for that visit. So if you have 5, 6 people coming, 10 people coming, but all going to the same person, it's very simple in the sense of, you download the template, you update it, you fill it in, and, you preview and submit it. So each location could have different fields. So if I click download over here, it's going to download. And then when I open it up, of course, on the other side of my screen, it's basically going to have this information. First name, last name, representing company, email, mobile number. The asterisks are mandatory. So this system doesn't have emails mandatory, but if it was, it would have an asterisk. You would fill that out. And then basically, whoops, let's move this over. You would fill that out. You would click upload. You would follow the process. I may have one here. I think I have one. Nope, that one didn't match. But it does tell you. No, all right, I'll find that later, I promise. I don't have it set up on here, but basically it takes you through the same visitor process. So what it does is it takes you, through here, through the new visitor form. And once it gets to the point, it'll ask you what's the start date, what's the end date, and basically it'll, register everybody at the same time. That's in there. Any questions on that? Okay, so the kiosk, as Lillian had pointed out, that you do have the different forms or the different modules at the bottom. You also have your logo that can be seen. You can also play a video file behind here. You can also play a slideshow behind here. And where we do that is under setup, under global, under images over here. So in the middle, under images, you can put a kiosk video URL, or you can add a file over here. So we actually had a customer that created almost like a little slide deck of, best practices, for COVID and social distancing, all branded, with their corporate information there. So many things, to do to, make it personalized. And you can do this per lobby location, once again, global or, the lobby location. We also have the ability, to move these around, to hide these, so if customers, don't want previously visited, or they don't want new registration on a kiosk, they only want pre-registered, that can be done as well. So as Lillian mentioned, you do have the ability to scan a QR code, which is the way the visitors, can register. We can scan a business card to pull information from, and of course, manually entering information, from a walk-in. And then once they've entered information, you can take a photo. You can take a photo of the driver's license, front and back. They can sign the NDA. They can print a badge. Now, depending on the situation, we do have some lobbies where they allow the badge print because they have the kiosk right there with a printer in it, the thermal printer in it. They can't go anywhere because one, the guard has to let them into the next location, and two, they have to wait for an escort. So in this case, the visitor is basically checking themselves in, printing the badge, and then going up to the guard, saying, "Hi, I'm here." They check ID, and they make sure, and they wait for their escort to come down. So same thing here, the registration, and the check-in, the same, concept, that goes in here. With checkout, visitors can check out, on their own, or they can hand their card or their badge back to the, guard, or we can actually do, a self-checkout. Some customers, just allow, people to leave. It's not the best, thing in certain businesses. But then, let's say at, 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, we can do an auto checkout and basically check them out. We can also set a timer. So if, let's say, somebody set the visit till 4:30, we can put a 30-minute buffer, and then at 5 o'clock, we do an auto checkout. And of course, if there's a card attached to that, we would, basically disable that card, as well. So there's a couple of different things we can do. And of course, it all depends on, the interactions we have with the access control. But, those are typically the ones that are, the basic ones that are exposed. So if if you think of it, we can do it.
Mhm.
So I'm going to just touch on multi-tenant just for a few minutes. So multi-tenant is basically, as what I explained, is we have the ability where the tenant, so on the 10th floor, they're not going to really have a lobby ambassador, but they're going to have somebody, in the lobby ambassador role who may be the coordinator, the office manager. You can have every employee in that tenant, create visitors. And the neat thing is, the visitors go down to, the actual main system. So when someone comes in, the guard at the lobby, at the front desk, on the main floor from the building owner, can validate them, see where they're going, check them in. If there's access control in the building, they'll be tied in. The other neat thing, which we can do is, let's say if you have a tenant on the 10th floor of the building and they're tied into a building that's using Splan, but they have 3 other locations that they want to use Splan, and it's a cloud-based solution, we can tie in the back end, for reporting for employees. It's pretty neat, for some of the things, that we can do on an enterprise level. So it's just not that, oh, they have Splan and they can't use it anywhere else. They actually can. So it's good. I mean, we actually have some tenants that are using it that have like work share locations. And then of course we have, tenants that are large, law firms and different locations. And for some of the tenants, we actually have connected, which is standard, Active Directory SSO. It's not standard to do that because typically you're doing that at the landlord owner building level, so they can manage the system. But we do offer that, and some tenants, have required that, well, if we're going to use the system, we need to, be secure, and we offer that as part of our standard, package, with AD and, SSO. So the features, that we have, of course, the multi-tenant is an optional module, and it allows, the property management and the building owner to offer the tenants, a separate area. You can actually have, separate turnstiles. There's just many different, ways to do it. And of course, the building owner staff or security, would process, the tenants, that are coming through in the lobby. So it does, make, for a more, more secure location. The other things, that it does being, cost effective, is one, you're checking in, people who's there, you're making sure that any of the vendors and anybody who's coming through, there's reporting. So it's definitely something, is a little bit better for, access control to tie in to that. And a lot of the buildings, what they've done is they've had, of course, usually 2 kiosks or 2 lobbies. They have the front desk and then they have the loading dock. So that, all the vendors, that come in the back, have to check in with security and, and go through. The other part of this, which is another module, is the vendor contractor portal. And basically you have what I mentioned early on about vendor coordinators, and the vendor coordinators, allow an outside third party who's been vetted, who's been approved by, the system owner, to manage, the vendors that are coming in. So if there's cleaning services, if there's window washing services, security services, there's different ways that, the module can be done. But it's basically, for the vendor to pre-register their employees. It's basically reducing the staff, whether it be a multi-tenant location or just, a standard office building, that you're reducing the congestion, at the front desk, and, having the separate vendor module. Some buildings or some customers have multiple, vendors that come in on a daily basis. Some businesses have a larger contract workforce, and this allows them, to manage this, in a better way. So, it allows you, for better record keeping. It also has documentation storage in here so that you can put in required licenses, credentials, insurance. You can also put expiration dates. So, if it's 6 months or 12 months, that it has to be renewed. So we do have that in there. And then of course you have the validation, from the reporting to know when they've been on site. So there's no issues with billing or things like that. If, let's say, nobody is there to validate the work, well, they came in and left at certain times. And then if you have a CCTV system, of course, they can get some video validation. Any questions?
No, so far so good.
Okay. So Splan package delivery, as we demoed this, is basically the delivery person at the kiosk. They can enter in the information, or it could be the lobby ambassador. The person gets notification, as you see, they're happy, and then the employee picks up the package, and the receptionist can even do this from an iPad, or a phone using the Sign In Easy app, and there is an audit trail. The other thing we can do is even with door opening, so if there's a tie-in, with access control, depending on, if it's a, location that does not have a lobby ambassador, so then the employee, can open up the door by, accepting, that package. So there's different ways, that it can be done, but we have that covered in a couple different scenarios or use cases. So I'm going to switch over to the watch list for a moment. So as we discussed, with Lillian showing the watch list, you'll see that the red icon, where it says watch list over here, and then it says approve or reject. So this is basically someone, who's set to allow entry that's on the watch list, because there may be some notes in the system that says, why they're allowed, or maybe they need an escort, or maybe they're just on the watch list because they're only allowed to go, to a certain area. So that's all, that's there. So this means, they got past the initial, registration process, not in a bad way, but now, you're allowing this person, on your site.
Mark, I have a question on the watch list feature.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a link to a specific database or multiple databases? And then can you also enter your own people into the watch list?
Oh, absolutely. No, this is built into the system. So you have a whole separate interface in here with your, with your watch list. So, under setup over here, you have your watch list right over here. So your watch list, you can add your own person over here, with the details, or you can, as you see here, upload. So it is part, but we also do have interaction with third-party vendors to do, sexual offender search. We also have a national database that, will, do, the full check of somebody, which is a per record check. So we do have, other integrations And that's something you can, speak with Pat with.
Okay.
So we do have other third parties that are tied into Splan, which the customer would have to pay for separately as a subscription service, but that would allow them to have additional levels of, of validation of the visitors.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, but this watch list is mainly used, many employees for, termination of employees, vendors, things like that. They have a policy that, some companies are very, very strict that anybody who's terminated gets on the, do not enter list. Especially for some of the larger companies, it's just their policy. Not that anybody has done anything wrong. It's just that's what they do. So that's there. Reporting, depending on what modules you have, you'll have different reports. But we do have your standard daily visitor reports, your check-in, check-out reports, event reports, canceled event reports, no show attendees, member check-in, check-out for member modules. Like if you're doing something like for a gym or even country club, or or even somehow like some schools. Have the member module, which basically we relabel into a parent module. So, we do a lot of, different things, as part of being an enterprise solution that makes it easy, to use the system. So I hope everyone's been paying attention a little. So this is kind of a team effort for this. So I didn't tell you we were having a quiz. So I don't think I put that in the agenda, but this is simple. So just helps reinforce a few things. So what deployments are supported? Are we doing on-prem, public cloud, private cloud, or all?
Okay, so I'm going to let Bobby, Bruce, and Marius answer these.
I'm going to say all when you were talking
Oh,
about.
yeah, I was gonna say all.
Yeah,
Because we
and
got
I did
cloud
not
and
talk.
on-prem.
Yeah, I didn't talk about private cloud. We are in the Azure cloud for public, when we build our systems, but there is an additional option that if a customer says, I want my own system, I want my own URL, I want every, separate, we do offer the private cloud option. So good inference. So can customers make the following registration methods available to visitors? Manual, business card, or driver license scanning and facial recognition?
True.
I
Correct.
don't remember facial.
Yeah, I brought it up as facial as an option, but yes, we can
True.
We can turn on and turn off, depending on what the customer wants in that form. Because when you see a new registration, some customers are like, I don't want business card, I don't want driver's license, I just want them to enter their information. So we can customize, not even customize, just update the form to do that. So number 3, which of the following are considered as modules?
Top one.
Oh, deliveries, temp badge, vendors, contractors.
Can I give a hint? Which one is not a module? How about that?
Approval flows.
Correct. Approval flows is not a module. That is more of a integration professional service effort, depending on the complexity of the flow.
Right.
Right. So everything else is a module. And these are additional modules. So basically the visitor module is your standard module, and then you would add additional modules as needed based upon the customer's use cases. Okay, so I did mention this. What is the limit of roles, employees, and visitors that can be created within the visitor management system? And are there costs based on these numbers? So is it A, B, C, or D?
I'm gonna go with D.
Anyone want to jump on the D bandwagon? To C to, but you are correct. Yes, there. As I mentioned before, you're paying per lobby. That is how the modules. That's how the registration. We don't have a limit of how many users. You can have a system with 5 people that's registering 10 people a week, or you can have a system that's, you know, registering 800 people, you know, a day through, you know, multiple locations.
And then Mark, just to clarify, so if there was, let's say a main floor and you had a front and a side entrance, could they be the same lobby?
Yes,
Or they-
yes, absolutely right. You can have them at the same lobby. You won't, though, have the differentiation in the reporting, though, because if they check in, it'll be just checking into that one location.
Okay. And if you wanted them separate profiles, then you would define it, it would be a separate lobby then.
Correct, correct. Normally, you know, like on a campus, each building is its own. Sometimes the front door and back door are the same, but some customers, depending on, you know, front door, back door, want that second door to be a second lobby because maybe that's an employee entrance and a vendor entrance versus a visitor entrance.
Mhm.
So then that would be programmed as a different location.
Correct, and that's another cost because, you know, the way that we're licensing is based upon the number of lobbies/locations. So
Right.
you can have a building with 4 entrances, 4 iPads. That could be one location, or it could be 4 individual locations versus one.
Right. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's everything comes down to just like, you know, you do with access control to the customer. What do you want to do? What are we trying to solve? What's the experience you're trying to produce?
It's kind of like what we're doing today with the Vanderbilt software. We license per location.
Right, the different profiles with the guest pack lobby.
Right, exactly, because the location could be set up with different peripherals,
Different
and you
processes and-
you might not have a business card scanner or a scanner at one location where you do at the other.
Right, and you may not have an iPad or a kiosk at a location. You may have a security guard or a person at a desk with the web interface, with
Right.
a camera connected to it, with a scanner connected to it, you know, with a temp badge reader connected to it. Because that's the other thing. How do you do the temp badge reader? We don't need to be tied into any access control system because we're the ones that are initiating that communication. So for anything that we do with a temp badge reader, we have a USB, you know, prox card reader that plugs into a workstation or a laptop. And that would do it. The kiosks don't do the temp badge reader. If they did, then you would have to have a workstation, you know, within range, you know, that you can run a USB cable, you know, to it.
Right.
So that's the one differentiation that some people, you know, forget is that on the temp badge, we are going into your system for access control to make that entry, but we have to initiate it because we're tracking that from the Splan side. Okay. One more, on the bottom of this page. Can QR codes, barcodes be provisioned onto access control systems so visitors can use them for readers and turnstiles and elevators?
True.
Right, because we have two different QR codes. We have the QR code for pre-registration. So I register you as a visitor. Now you can go onto, you know, the customer site and register and check in. We're going to give you another QR code, you know, to continue on your, you know, your journey. So that QR code we give you will not allow you into the building. We do have some integrations at another client where we issue the QR code, but that QR code we do send to the access control system because they need to get into the parking garage or the lot. But that will not get them any further into the property, building, or anything like that. And once they're into the lot and then they come inside and they check in, they of course, you know, get issued another QR code, you know, from the badge. And then from there, they can continue. So, you know, like I said, if you think of it, you know, you can come to us. I mean, look, do we want to do, you know, what we can offer out of the box? Of course. But what makes us unique is we can do more. And, it's dangerous. You know, like I said, the good and the bad. The good, we can do many things. The bad, we can do many things because, it's just can get complex sometimes, but in a good way. But like anything else in sales, you want to keep it in the box, everything. So a few more questions. Can tenant admins maintain their own visitors, employee sync and reports?
I'm gonna say true.
True.
Right, just as I said, the tenants are kind of on their own, meaning they have a slice of the system and they can do AD, they can do employee, they can do syncs, they're gonna have their own reports, but what they can't do is see everything. They're only gonna be able to see their view of the world. So for number 7, can contractors and other visitor types have their own registration flows, mandatory safety visit videos, additional documents requiring signatures. True. True. Just like anything else, contractor, and visitor type. So depending on how the system, like what type of visitors you're checking in, we can have different flows and everything. And then what type of watch list integrations are available?
Both.
Correct, as I just showed that. Aside from out-of-the-box reports, does Splan offer ad hoc or customized reports? Right. The general answer, yes, is true. We do not offer direct access to our, to our database, even, on-prem or cloud at this time, something that's on our, roadmap. But we can offer customized reports, meaning if the data is within our system, we can build a report, to fit the customer's needs. We feel that we, of course, like anyone else, have enough reports, but sometimes, certain customers want additional reports. And number 10, can the fields to capture information in the delivery module be changed, configured?
I'm gonna say yes again.
Correct. Right. You can add, right. We can add different delivery types. We can, change the label slightly. That is, part of, our system.
Mark, real quick, if you go back to reports, if a customer has a bunch of user-defined fields and they want to report on those, would we have to go back to Splan to get a custom quote for that report?
Well, depending on what it is. I mean, if it's something that the customer, is looking for it, and we try to build that in during the implementation, to say there's X amount of days or hours as part of the plan. So unless it's something's, after the fact, everything's closed, and now the customer says, listen, I need to report it as this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something is just, we need to add a field to a report, there's typically not a charge for that. That's something we handle through the support side. And, depending on what has to be done for the report, whether it's in the next, release cycle, like we typically, go with like a 3 or 4 week, release cycle. So you're developing, you're testing, and then usually releasing, or QAing and then release. So that would be how it is. But if it's a very complex report or something we don't have that's in our reporting, then yes, there may be a small charge, to build it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. That's good to know.
Okay. Yep. Okay, and I think for now we can, take a break, so that we'll get into the configuration workshops. We'll actually be hands-on into the system, going through some of the configurations. So is like a 10-minute break okay?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll pause the recording and recording. So everyone has their system open, right?
Yes.
And logged in. Okay. So you can kind of, go back between, the presentation and what I'm doing. So what we want you to do is to make sure you're in the global settings at the top. And then you're going to go into setup. So where we're going to go now is we're going to go to the locations. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up one of your locations, and we're going to add in a name. So this is something that we do as part of licensing. So the system will always come, one location, one lobby, and then depending on what is purchased, you'll have additional locations. So go ahead and open up the location icon, and I'm going to, bring it up over here. So locations is here with it looks like a little pin on the map. And then you'll click on the provider location ID, which is an internal number, for us. As you see here, you see if it's active or not. So if someone did purchase multiple locations, they didn't want them to show, you can make it inactive. You can change the display sequence or display order. And of course, you can delete it as an admin. But if you go in here and select it, you're going to go ahead and, this is all fictitious, all in your system. Location name, display name. You can leave the sequence. You can put a description in if you need to. Parking instructions, if you do have any parking instructions. You can put an address in here, so, your corporate address, not necessarily your home address or your favorite business address, you can put in here. You can change the time zone. Just one note, if you do change the time zone, you will need to log out and log back in. And then on the bottom here, depending on what features are enabled for the lobby, meaning SMS, Wi-Fi, enable duplicates, enable watch list. What enable duplicates means is that we're going to create a different record every time somebody visits versus creating one record and using that same record over and over. Some customers have it one way, some customers have it another way, but typically it's not it's up to the customer.
Question: what constitutes a duplicate? When do you say someone is a duplicate?
Well, if I go put sorry, give me one sec. Sorry. So what constitutes a duplicate? So if I were to look somebody up, in the system, a duplicate would mean that their record, would come up as a second time. So there would be like in your access control system, you can have, multiple entries versus just, one entry with, multiple visits. So every time someone visited, they would get a record. Versus attaching the detail to that record. Can you relate to that as similar to access control?
I guess we saw a report example of what that would look like, a duplicate versus, so if you had no duplicates enabled, that card holder, that visitor would still have a record of every time they accessed the site, right? Or visited the site. Mm-hmm. But you're saying it would be a completely unique entry if you had enable duplicates.
Correct. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can show you one that's in my my PS, one of my demo systems.
I mean, I guess what would be the reason that someone would want duplicates?
I can get back to you on that for the specifics.
Okay.
Let me just look at one of my lobbies here. Yeah, I have my demo system here, so I'm just taking a quick look just to see in locations what I have selected in here. Okay, so enable duplicates is not selected. Go to dashboard, location 1.
How do we know?
Yeah, and this may have a difference in email. So I just clicked on that one, the top one, so there's no email and it just has my name. And let me just click on the bottom one just to see what the difference is with this one. Yeah, see, this one has my name here, my email. So there is a unique, a different part of, that record. So there would probably be, more of them, but I'll get you the official technical answer for what the difference is, for enable, duplicates.
Yeah, just to understand if there's a benefit to using it one way versus the other. Or maybe there's a specific customer request that you guys just, included in the software, but it's maybe it's just, one customer that needed it for some reason.
Yeah, because eventually you have to differ, as you said, on at least one field. The question is, are these fields preset? For instance, in our system, you may have 50 John Does, and so what customers are doing, they add their own field called, let's say, employee ID, and then they know which is unique from their point of view. So how would you do that here if you have 50 Jaros on the list? Which one is
right? I mean,
which one
we would have to
a person?
Right, we would have to enforce, by the asterisk, in the sense of, first name, last name, email. to make, the record, more unique. But I'll get the answer from our technical team so that we can have that information. Okay, so did everyone fill out their name, the location name, the address, and everything?
Okay. Oh. Fill it out, then.
I'll go back.
Location. Location.
So everyone's good with this and click save? Okay. All right, so I was able to get an answer. I don't know if it's going to, I don't want to say make you 100% happy, but it's basically to avoid the duplicate visitor profile entry to be created again if it exists. So basically, if the flag is disabled, the system checks to see if the entry exists based upon the rules and prompts the lobby ambassador to pick an existing profile versus creating a new one.
Yeah, we still need to know what makes it unique, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, what is the rule that you quote? Because that would be crucial in identifying someone who's on watch list, which of the John Does actually
Well, I guess
the
the other thing here with enable duplicates, if this is selected, it's not going to check, meaning it's just going to allow you to create a record whether that person existed or not. What it does if it's unchecked is it'll prompt to say, oh, there's another Mark Jarrow here. Is this, the record you want to use? Because there was a prior visit.
Okay.
I mean, that's the simplest, way to look at it is because it is a visitor record within the customer's system, but it allows you so that you're not going to have, 50 Mark Jarrows visiting, or 50 records, that's in there. Some customers have been very strict to say, well, I only want one visitor record. And the first rule is when somebody, comes to, create a visit, is the first thing they do is when they select new visitor, they go here. They go search to see if that visitor has been here before.
Right,
So,
but just based on the first and last name, you could need duplicates. There has to be some other piece of information that.
Right, it could be
is
phone
used.
number. Right, if we had additional information here that was mandatory, then it would, of course, be, more unique. But as you saw in the two records I selected, one had email, one didn't.
Right.
But you could make other fields required for
Yes,
registration. Okay.
correct. So you'll have, more additional specific information. Okay. So from moving on from the new location, of course, you get the confirmation, that it's there, that you've, changed the name. You will need to, like I said, log out and log back in because there's some changes that are dynamic, some changes that are not. Because when you've logged in, it's loaded, certain information. So in order to see the location name and items that you've done, that you would need just to log out and log back in. Branding images. I did discuss this, and this was basically showing you that you have the ability here under the images, and let me just go make sure, sorry, I'm gonna close this so that I don't keep showing that one, that I just go back to the main one here for the training. Going back into setup, I'm in global and going into images. This gives you just another bit of, detail, customization, that you can put, on the kiosk. So that is what the images is for over here. Just wanted to show you. The next part is logos. So you can actually, if you do have a logo, you can go ahead and we can look at that, right now. So I'm going to go back over here, go back into setup, and go back into logos. Sorry, my mind to get to organization. Oh, this is under organization profile. Sorry. Sometimes they just change the label on this. So originally it was called, logos, but now it's called organization profile. So once again, you can, name this. This is used, internally, so that what system, that we're on. And then, of course, you have the logo. So as you see the Splan logo that's up here, you'll notice here that even though it has a white background, the background, is more just translucent, it's clear. So the white does not show up here. So if you do want to have a logo show up here, you do need to make sure if it's, a dark, light background. If you have letters where there's spaces where, it's just an outline, you may also need to do it because it'll pick up the dark background on here. So this is the provider logo, which is what goes here. The kiosk logo is what's on the, what's on the kiosk if you want to change it. And as you recall, we're in global settings. So if you want to change this for location 2 or location 1, you go ahead and you can do the same thing when you're in that location. This is on the badge. This allows you to have the logo on the badge if it's a different logo, and then of course on the reporting as well. So there are options in there. The next part that we have is and if you want to go upload a logo, you can do that. And once again, you'll have to, log out, log back in to do that. And if you are going to do that on the kiosk, just like any, Apple, or Android, product for an app, you have to swipe the app away and reopen it, and the logo, will appear. So employee sync. So as we mentioned, we do have a couple ways to do, employee sync. We can take a flat file. We can have it, via AD. So as you see here, we have the upload file. Now, one thing I wanted to show is, where do we get the detail for the upload file? So if I go to setup and I'm in global, I go to employee sync. And over here, what's in your upload file? Well, I'm going to download it. And once again, based upon the requirements that were, set forth in the initial system, this is the basic requirements: first name, last name, login, email ID, department. We can actually have more fields. So how do we have more fields? We go to employee. And once I go in here and I go to add employee, you'll see we have the different fields here. Don't mind about my autofill. We have, the different fields here. We can add in additional fields. We can repurpose fields. So short description could become, building number. Long description could become, floor, could become badge number. Whatever information we're getting, because we can take information from an access control system if that's the system of record. We can take information from an HR system, if that's a system of record. We can go from AD. But remember, there's two different syncs here. There's the employee sync of where are we getting the employee, but then we also have the authentication of, how are we authenticating? Two different things. Could be the same, but we have that option to point somewhere else. Because just like with your access control, some customers will say, well, my AD is good, but it doesn't have all this information. You have to go to this system to get it. So sometimes we've taken an export out of the access control system to do the watch list to populate it. We've also taken an export for, the valid users because, there is, let's say if there's a unique ID. We had one customer which has a unique ID that tied all their employees together in different systems. We were able to take, one of these other fields here and, add it to that field. So once we have that, then we can, take that file, download it, have it properly populated, and then we can upload it. Or if it's a file that gets updated on a regular basis, we can create a job and, pull it in on a nightly basis. Any questions on this?
How can you make a field mandatory on your employee?
That is something that our group does in the future. In our roadmap, this is something that the partner or configurator can do.
Okay.
It's basically a label, and there's a configuration that allows us to do it. But some of these items, are stuff that, our support team, would handle. Let's say the customer's live and they say, well, we need this other field. That's typically not like a full-blown, implementation. But during the implementation process, we like to get this information ahead of time. This is part of our, checklist and part of our process of, how are we populating the system? Where are we getting the employee from? So, over here, this is just a sample, file, where you're putting the information in. You're going to, upload the file, and then you're going to, process it as you see over here on the right side under the action. And then, it's going to come in, and, say document processing has started. And then, it's going to complete, shows, one record, for example. I mean, we have some customers that have, up to 200,000 employees. We have others that, that are more. But we're not loading 200,000 each time. We're doing a comparison and seeing if there's a change. And if there's a change, then we process it. So part of the authentication, we have different authentication mechanisms. Active Directory is standard, that's included. Customer, wants SSO, which is usually tied in, with Azure. We have Okta, Google SAML. So, we do have different ones, that we work with, and, depending on the customer system, we'll make it enabled. So if you go into connectors, you'll see that we have, the Active Directory for LDAP, and it's not configured because you have a plus sign, you don't have a pencil here. So that will be configured. We have the Vanderbilt connector here. And then for employee sync, we can sync via FTP, we can sync via LDAP, we can sync with Azure. We can sync, manually, as well. And then these are, just different internal, SMS reporting, different modules that we have. So depending on, the options that are chosen, once again, this connector is, as I said, an admin function. It may not be something you want everybody, to have access to in here. So now getting back to the next slide, employees. So here, this is if you're not using the AD FTP sync process. You do have some organizations that, listen, may have, 5, 10 employees, or, there's just a limited core group that's, using the system, and, maybe they have high volume of visitors. So you can still do it manually, as I showed before. You can go ahead and create the employee information. You can click save. It's definitely, very easy, to do this, and different check marks. So you see over here on the bottom left, you have do not display in kiosk, do not display for LA registration, do not display for employee, or locked. So if, let's say somebody, in the organization, whether somebody from HR, well, you don't want them on the kiosk, maybe you don't want the lobby ambassador to be able to do it, do not display for the employee. Basically, someone cannot make, a visit for them, or they can't look them up. So you do have the ability, to hide that. If it is a larger list that you want this done to, then, that's something our team, can help with. There's no additional charges for that. It's just to say, well, these records, we want this, feature or this setting, turned on or, turned off. If we want more selective, instead of turning on SMS for everybody, you can, turn on SMS for, certain people. We do also have a local login, so if you don't have Active Directory or SSO, we do have that ability to do that. And then kiosk PIN. So what this is for, this is only for admins. So you would set your own kiosk PIN. So if you do need to update a kiosk or delete or do some maintenance on the kiosk, meaning within the Splan app, you would have this kiosk PIN that would allow you to, to log in. If for some reason you can say, oh my gosh, I don't have it. Well, if you have the correct role, you can go in and, add it yourself, or you would have to ask somebody to say, listen, I need to do maintenance on the kiosk. Can you, give me a PIN? So you can do that as well. You can also have effective start date, effective end date. So if somebody's a contractor, maybe you're putting in a temporary employee, you can, set the end date. So then, come that time, they become, inactive. And then if you do have a manager name that's part of the AD file, you can put that in here, which, can help later on if you're doing approvals, like if there's workflow and certain approvals that need to be done. this does help, with that. Not a requirement. Now, once again, you can make any field in here required, but it's just, up to, your customer and your use case of, how you want to do that. There's just a couple slides here, just showing the employees. Now, most of the employees will get global location, global settings, but, as we said, there's different locations and different ways to do that. So if you do want employees, to be at only location one, but not others, that can be done. But typically, the employees get global location, but you can, limit, to, what they see and what locations they can create visits for. So now we're going to go into roles, and we're going to go ahead and create a new role. So if you remember where we were before in the system, we have on the global setup, you do have your user roles and permissions, which are where the roles are today, where you assign them, but where you need to be is roles. So we don't have a copy feature here yet, but what you can do is you can create a new role, and you can either slot it in maybe between the lobby ambassador and the employee, or you can slot it in between the supervisor or the admin and your lobby ambassador. So it is fairly straightforward in the sense, dashboard. You have the visitors, you have your VIP list if you're able to show that, your watch list. And you can look at the standard ones, that we've set up. The other thing too is you can, do a control, F in here, and you can also, search for, well, visitor. You can search for, purge, it'll find. So you can do a search in here. This is going to be slightly changed in a future release, so it'll be a little easier to see. I think they may tab it out. So for each feature, it's going to be on a tab. Any questions on this? And depending what features you have, we'll show, what's in here. So far, this is all making sense and.
I think we're okay so far, everyone?
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay.
Okay. The one
Just-
thing, go ahead.
Just curious about, you mentioned purging as a part of your admin role. Can you define the rules so it happens automatically, or is it that?
Yes, we can create, record retention, within our system for the cloud system or on-prem, whether it be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Typically, I believe, our limit is 7. Anything after that, would be, potentially additional storage. But, most customers, have the ability to run reports, pull out the data, that they may need for that. But, if there's a purge, that we can do it after a certain date.
Okay.
What's the default?
I think the default is 1 year, but we set it up based upon your, your customers' requirements.
Okay.
So that's usually something we ask. And like I said, we typically don't go over 7. But it is configurable.
Okay.
Okay. I know we're getting to, the top of the hour here. And then is everyone planning on rejoining, or the majority this afternoon?
Yes, Bruce and
Yeah.
Mark, will you be joining?
It's up to our boss.
I don't,
John, are they allowed to join this afternoon or no?
We have to see what his schedule looks like today.
Okay, so it'll at least be me and Bobby
Yep.
and maybe Eric.
Okay. Yeah, because what we've gone through so far, is this side. you know, where we've gone here. I didn't go as much into the administrator role, but the one thing I would like to do before we start, when we come back, if you can, as homework, if you can make 2 employees, and we're going to use those and assign them, you know, the roles. We're going to assign one as a lobby ambassador and one as an admin. So if you can just create 2 temporary or 2 employees in your systems, that will be something we'll do when we come back. And then we'll be continuing, you know, to go through, in detail, all the key areas. And this is basically what you need to do to configure a system. As I said, out of the box, customer can use it, but they may say, well, I don't like this message. Oh, well, I wanted to say this, or, so we can start with that. And then, as they start to use the system, we can make modifications to it.
Okay. Are we going to see integration to SMS?
I know Lillian did the demo on that. I will bring that up. I do have the integration guide. We're not going to do it specifically, but we'll go through, the information that's required.
Okay.
Okay, well, I thank you, for your time, today, and I, appreciate, going through this. I know it, may, not be as technical, but it's still a requirement, meaning to learn what the, what the method is, to configure the system, to get someone up and going, and the key items that need to be done to, as we say, to get a customer, live, or, even you can use this and say, this is almost like a quick start, a lot of this can be done, fairly quickly, but sometimes what happens is, in meetings, customers will be like, well, what about this notification? We have to go to the marketing team. We got to go to HR, what kind of, preferences do you need? Oh, we got to go to facilities, or, so there's so many different, things that could, take time. So we always try to get the prerequisites before we do this.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, I just have one real quick question. I'm not sure it applies here, but so I noticed in the price list that you have 2 versions of the basic cloud package, and one is K through 12 and one is standard. And can you tell me the difference between those?
Yeah, the K through 12 is more of a member module one, where it's more for like a school or kind of gym, where the visitors are not really visitors, they're members, or as part of that. The other one would be more the standard package, meaning the normal visitor package.
Okay. Thank you.
So
All right, so
yeah,
we're going to reconvene in 2 hours?
correct.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
All
so
right,
I'll have
thank
a separate recording, for that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thanks, everyone.
Thank
Great.
you.
Talk to you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we'll speak to you too.
Bye.
Bye.
To execute.